Warning! This episode contains graphic language, depictions of violence, hammer slaying, sad boy emo villains, and as always, teen angst. Also, there'll be spoilers for the final 5 chapters of Eldest, Book 2 of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. And anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also is a thorn unto his enemies.
And I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we're always discovering our friends are brothers and our brothers are cousins, and we have more dead dads by the minute, and it's really getting exhausting.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
If you'd like to support us on Patreon, there's a link in the show notes, and if you can or just don't want to, we totally understand and just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You get a bonus points this time if you can somehow mention the word Eldest in your review. You can also check us out on our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or Fantasy Pod on Insta and Twitter.
Yes, and as always, please visit our website, isthisjustfantasypod.com. We sell our very cool merch there, and also you can find some fun facts about Dane and I, and also pictures of our faces if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. So before we get into our last episode of this season, not to be believed,
No.
2 seasons down, I want to do a quick recap of what went down when we went to war on the last episode.
To war!
Yes, war just canonically has to have the transatlantic accent
Of
behind
course,
it.
I
Don't know
agree.
why. And has to be yelled. So Aragon, Auric, and Saphira travel efficiently for once to Aberon, the incredibly well-protected capital of Serda. But when they meet the city's governor, they find out that the Varden left for war without them.
Oh, no.
I know, they got left behind. Train's leaving. The Varden's basically like their dad who's worried about being late everywhere.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm leaving without you.
So they're going to have to travel one more day over to the Burning Plains. So as Oregon and Saphira make it there and make their final descent down towards the battlefield, they get a full view of both sides' forces and realize how outnumbered the Varden's troops are. It's looking bleak.
Looks grim.
Yes, and before they can land, they're shot at by the Varden sentinels who panic at the sight of a dragon, which, like, fair.
Yes.
But Aragon pulls a god-level move to freeze all their arrows in midair and ends up congratulating them for their quick reflexes when he lands. Someone is clearly campaigning for prom queen.
Yes.
And I think it's working. I think she's going to make it. But Aragon has that small matter of the war to attend to and
The war.
requests, thank you, it's contagious.
We're going to do it every time.
He requests to be taken to Naswada, becoming a touch overwhelmed on the way when his stump training is turning up thousands of human consciousnesses instead of ants.
Can you imagine all the weird shit he's picking up?
Oh, so much weird shit.
Yeah.
Naswada catches Aragon up on the situation on the ground here and tells him to leave his curse on Elva until after the battle.
That's fine.
Super questionable morally. It's a big ick. Aragon and Saphira head over after that to Duvrangargata to have a quick little chat with Triana to wrestle control of the cabal of magicians from her. She's understandably resistant to hand her crew over to a teenage bean farmer, but she ultimately agrees as long as she can be assistant to the regional manager.
Yes.
And Duvrangargata from there starts planning how they're going to locate magicians in the enemy ranks and then all join forces to crush them. It's a pretty good plan.
Brutal but effective.
Yes, I think it's going to be. Aragon starts group interviews with the magicians to understand their abilities and learns that most were trained very informally, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
Mostly they're just kind of shitty at their jobs, but he's going to join them together.
He's a
and
good teacher.
yes, strength in numbers
He's
is
like,
what he's going
there's
for.
no I in team.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. So he gets to building out his org chart when we learn that a force of Kull is approaching the camp under a white flag. Aragon and Saphira go straight to Naswada, and Aragon's eager to get to murdering, but his liege is more savvy, offering the Kull the same courtesies as any foe under the banner of truce. Naswada meets with the lead Kull named Nar Garjvog, our new favorite character.
So great.
Loki.
What a great name.
So good. Who offers to fight with the Varden in exchange for just a bit of territory and the blood of the traitorous, insane murder wizard king.
Okay.
Just a couple quick, like, we'll fight with you.
Yeah.
We just want a couple small things. So despite objections from pretty much everyone who advises her, Niswada decides to form an alliance with the Urgles. Notably, the only other person on her side is Saphira for the most part. Meanwhile, a lone soldier representing Galbatorix rides over the no man's land to declare official war on the Varden, displaying a severed head as warning. And the Varden prepares for battle at dawn. That guy dies horribly.
So funny how he dies.
I love it. Oryx stops by as everybody's preparing for war to casually pledge that all the clan members of Durgrimston Jedum, who are here with the Varden right now, will fight with Aragon and Saphira as an honor guard. We like Oryx.
So cool.
We love Oryx. And Aragon's honor guard dance card is filling up pretty quick here because Niswada comes over to let him know she's arranged for protection from Nargarsvog himself and a group of his like best Kull. His best men, yes.
So cool.
Aragon struggles with his racism in the face of this, which is a super tough look for our guy.
It's not great.
It's not great, but he probes their minds and ultimately agrees to let them help. Finally, as they hear screams of agony from the Empire's camp, Angela reveals that she and Solumbum have poisoned the enemy's food and water to sow confusion
Against
on
all
the
odds.
eve of battle against truly all odds. And with that, in famous fantasy parlance, it has begun. The Varden army marches silently in the wee hours to avoid detection before their first strike. Aragon uses his mind to kill enemy soldiers and search for Galbatorix's magicians. But as the tide of battle is looking dicey for the rebels, Aragon and Saphira fight on the front lines to boost morale, accumulating injuries right and left, and feeling increasingly hopeless until King Orin, that weird foppish man of Serta, gets to come through with the best announcement. It's Hrothgar. The dwarven forces marching in, dripped out in their blingy armor.
Hell yeah.
And they come in basically to execute like a perfect flanking maneuver on the Empire soldiers.
Because Hrothgar's the man.
Hrothgar is the best. And just as they're starting to feel relief, Aragon and Saphira spot a ship that could be bringing Imperial reinforcements, and they prepare to destroy it.
Oh, man.
And that's where we wrapped. The battle rages on.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
How are you feeling last episode of the season?
I'm feeling good. I'm also like, I'm just surprised we're here. We made it.
I know we wrote all this stuff, so
I know. It's just been a while.
in theory we knew it was coming, but
Yeah.
I can't believe, when we went up to 13 episodes for Eldest, just to like break it down into manageable chunks so our episodes would not be 4 hours long.
Yes.
It did feel like it would take a while, but I feel like it came up quicker than I was expecting.
I know. And just because what I mean, like we from conception to this podcast in like 2021 to now, I'm like, wow, I can't believe we're doing it.
I know.
Pretty
Truly,
cool.
truly wild. So yeah, I'm excited. Are you ready to
Hell
kick us off on some chapter
yes.
summaries?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. That takes us to the last set of chapters for this book. Starting with chapter 68. Convergence.
I just yell now.
Well, we start with Roran on the dragon wing, thinking about his bum shoulder.
Yes.
It's gotta hurt still, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think it's still pussy?
Ew.
What?
That's gross.
It was pussing.
Yeah, I prefer not to think about, the pus of it all day.
Oh, okay. We won't get into the details, but it's gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bet it is. No, I bet it's healed over.
Do you think it's healed over? That's
They've
what I'm
been on the
asking.
ship like a month.
Right, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got to be sealed.
Yeah, a bit.
Maybe it smells, but
Ew,
it's healed.
Dane.
All right. The people of Carvajal have sailed around the southern islands in the bottom of the southwest of the map of Alagasia and up the river of Douth after leaving Tirum.
Yes.
The resources are low by this point, and the villagers are looking sickly and worn out, more Garrow-like than ever before.
They're all taking on appearance of our favorite Uncle Daddy.
Yes. While they sail, Roran hears at Douth that the Varden are in a battle up in the burning plains.
Interesting.
And thinks it would
I wonder how that's going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's fine.
Okay.
He thinks it would be better, like, serve the people of Carvajal's position within the Varden if they played a part in the fight in the resistance at the burning plains.
Okay.
So he wants to take the ship up to help.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Roran talks the entire village into going to
Once
war.
again.
Yes, and I'm assuming this ends with him like, it's that or swim.
Join or die.
Yeah,
Just a
it's-
classic call to war kind of a vibe.
At some point, someone's going to be like, this is the same speech, just repackaged.
Yes. Did he give us his signature rousing roarin' rant?
I'm sure he did.
Trademark?
Oh, trademark.
Yes.
TM.
Yeah.
Roran talks them into it, and the governor of Douth is like, ooh, thank God. Once he hears that they're going, better you than me. And he outfits the Dragon Wing with new supplies. They have food, finally.
Nice.
And from Douth, they sail up the Jeet River to the bend right in front of Milana, I think.
Okay.
And between the river bend and Milana is the Burning Plains, I think, is how it's described. It's not actually on that map. So if you're looking at
Okay.
it, look between those two places. I think that's where the Burning Plains is.
Okay.
Based on where they describe the bend in the river.
Okay.
That's a little mini deep
Little
dive.
inside baseball on
Yeah.
the geography. I was going to ask, so Doth is in Serta, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Then they take the Jeet River up to the bend, and then
Mm-hmm.
that band right before Milan, or Melian.
Milan. It's
Mulan.
Fashion Week coming up.
Yes, exactly.
Milan Fashion Week.
Heidi Klum's there.
Yeah.
We're at the Burning Plains. All right. Anyway, sorry. We're at war. Okay.
Oh, right. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry. Forget.
While they near the burning plains, Roran can hear the distant sounds of war, and he starts to question, while this is happening, his motivations. for
Weird.
getting
What
the
a
villagers.
time
I
to
know.
do that, Roran.
Yeah, Carvajal to the Varden, and he wonders if he's a good person or not. And I think if you start hearing the screams of war and you go, I wonder if I'm a good person. Maybe the timing's reflective
And
of...
maybe you shouldn't march into that war if you're having a bit of internal war, if you will, with your own morality. Maybe now's not the time to put yourself in a position to kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, but don't worry. He doesn't get to muse
He
too
doesn't.
long about it. Yeah. He can't really dwell on his morality for very long because the battle comes into vision.
Wow.
Yes. And apparently seeing it is when
Surprise,
you're like,
war.
I should stop thinking about this. So Roran sees from the river that the battle looks pretty evenly matched at this
Okay.
point. It just needs a nudge or push one way or the other, and it could change.
Ooh.
And Roran is determined. The Carvajalers are going to be that nudge.
I bet he is, yeah.
I know. I love the strong.
It's right up his alley.
I love the strong hammer. But all of a sudden, there's chaos on the Dragon Wing.
Oh, no.
Because Roran hears soldiers calling out at the ship and also the thud of wings.
So Saphira's full glider now, where
Oh,
like just
fuck
her
yeah.
wings flapping are giving us like
Hell
the
yeah.
big boom jaws noise.
Yeah, that like poof. Ah,
Yes.
so cool. I don't know.
Love it.
So Saphira and Aragon come diving towards the boat. And, and I have to say, everyone's like, ah! But
Yes.
beyond that, when Aragon finally levels off with Saphira, even Roran, the first thought he has is, damn, Aragon's looking
He's
fine.
handsome.
Yes. Roran also, like, from my cousin brother's hot, goes, man, he has some nice armor. Look at his fucking clothing. Look at that sword. And then he's like, he looks like a prince.
Oh my God.
It's fucking hilarious.
Ron's like, I look like Garrow, and he looks like a prince.
What the fuck?
Probably pisses him off all over again.
I know, but more than all those thoughts, his mind pretty much immediately goes to like how this Aragon can help him kill the Razak and save his woman Katrina. Revenge!
Oh my God. Well, he's nothing if not single-minded, Dane.
I love it, dude. Brother cousin revenge.
Yes.
It's the best kind of revenge.
Is it? I had no idea.
They come in many flavors.
I have no way of knowing that information.
They're all good, but brother cousin revenge is sweet. Anyway, so they look at each other eye to eye as Aragon levels off, and Roran, after all those feelings, feels a deep sense of anger.
Interesting.
Yeah. Aragon touches his mind to Roran, just the tip, and Roran thinks it's a vast alien mind.
Ooh.
Do you think Aragon, because he's connected to Saphira and now he's like half elven or whatever, do you think his mind is just completely different than human minds now?
I definitely bet it's significantly different. I also think with Aragon's like stump time connected to everyone and no one, like he probably, I don't know if you get like a little secondhand high from
You're like, oh man,
from stump
I
time
think that guy does yoga.
unified consciousness.
Is this guy a vegan?
I think I see Birkenstocks when I close my eyes. Yeah, I think it's a a little bit of that.
He seems more
You know,
self-actualized.
vast and alien.
Yes.
Like
all
yoga
vegans.
vegans with Birkenstocks.
Please write us in and tell us how you like our episodes. Aragon tells the Oh, what a pivot. Okay. Aragon tells through his mind cell service that Roran needs to stay where they are
Yes.
or go back down the river because there's a war and he doesn't want anybody to get hurt.
Yes.
And Roran tells him, I don't know why he tells him this. He's like, we need to talk. You have a lot to answer for. And I feel like Aragon is just like looking around like, dude, not the time.
Right now, you think?
I'm on a dragon.
Yeah.
We're busy.
Maybe we could find a different hot moment for that. Thanks.
So funny. Like, not the time, Roran.
No.
He's a little busy. Okay. There isn't time, and Saphira flies away.
Great.
And at least Horst, I have to say, I just full cut out of Roran, like just pan out. Horst is next to him, arms crossed, and at least he's like, wow, our little Aragon.
Look at him. He looks amazing. So proud.
That bean has sprouted, hasn't it?
Oh, God.
So Roran asks the ground to ground the ship.
Okay.
Let me start that over. Roran asks to ground the ship and uses the ballistas to start shooting the soldiers that are fighting the
Yes.
Varden. It's so
Super
dope.
cool.
And then Roran suits up to go into battle.
Yeah.
And it's the best line in the book because Horst asks him,
Also,
like,
how does he suit up?
I
Does
don't
he have
know.
armor?
He just grabs a hammer.
Okay.
I just wanted to make it sound
Oh,
cooler.
okay. Cool.
It's
cool,
not that cool. He's
Oh,
just like,
well,
put the gangplank down and then walks down.
That's pretty cool.
He's probably wearing sandals. You know what I mean?
Gotta be wearing sandals.
So Horst,
He's Moses. We'll get there.
Yeah, right?
He's definitely wearing sandals.
So Horst asks him like what he intends to do, and Roran, I just imagine, looks over his shoulder and goes, I intend to alter the fate of Alagasia.
Oh, so cool.
Yes!
It's a really good line. I will give Roran that. I think that's maybe best line in the book so far.
So fucking good.
Maybe other than you're a shade.
Yeah,
but hot contention
It's
between those two things, one or
and
the
neck.
other.
It's
Neck and neck. Yeah.
So that takes us to the end of my chapter.
Yes, that takes us to chapter 69, Eldest.
Ooh, name of the book chapter.
Very exciting. So Aragon has met back up now with his cousin brother in the midst of battle in Sirta. We're back in Aragon's point of view now.
Oh, okay.
It's a weird spot for a family reunion, but I guess that's when everyone could make it. I guess they all filled out the Google form with potential times and places.
Scheduling's always a conflict.
And they were like, it's either going to be Disney World in the spring or the burning plains during the war.
Roran has like a family reunion shirt on.
Well, they all are going to say like brother, cousin,
Yes.
father, uncle.
blacksmith cousin.
Yeah. Oh my God. So Aragon has picked up now from his point of view, like just looking in Roran's eyes, he's like, he knows that I'm partially responsible for Daddy Uncle's death.
I love that he picks that up.
Yes. And Aragon is like worried about that. He can tell Roran's still holding that grudge. And he does, though, order his allies. Like he radios over to Triana, I think, and is like, don't fucking attack Roran's ship.
Right.
They're good, but also send somebody over there to explain to them that we are in a war and they are to stay put on that ship. So he's like, send a herald and like have them get their shit together.
He's like, it's just a village of farmers. Don't let them get out of the ship.
Yes, basically. So he's like, pen them up in there. It's going to be okay. And he and Saphira head back over to meet up with King Hrothgar.
Yeah.
Finally, reunion in Auric, more family reunions. So now we're back with Dwarf Daddy.
Yeah, brother dwarf.
Yes, Daddy Uncle, Dwarf Daddy Uncle.
Dwarf daddy uncle.
And Hrothgar immediately, this is the first time he's seen Aragon since Aragon put on the Durgrimst Ingeedum helm and became
Hell yeah.
adopted into the clan.
So cool.
So Hrothgar greets him as his kin, which I love. It's very beautiful. And he's like ready to fucking roll immediately. And he comes up to Saphira. He's like, hello, dragon. You look beautiful in my armor that I gave you.
To be honest, it's the best greeting to a dragon we've had. I feel
think
like
so.
it's game recognized game.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
He's like loving her in her armor.
Yeah.
He thinks she's looking fierce. And what he asks her, which I love, he's like, you think it's time to put that armor to the test one more time? And I'm like, yes, Hrothgar, let's fucking do it.
Love dwarf daddy.
Yes, and he leads the charge against the Empire, which
Of course he does.
just cannot lose this guy. And the Varden, aided by the dwarves, are able to turn the tide of battle against the Empire's soldiers. The soldiers for the Empire, the Imperial force, they start to just like flee a little bit. Like a lot of them are just surrendering on the battlefield or just fucking running away.
It's the might of the dwarves.
Yes, dude, it's very exciting. And Aragon starts seeing fiery missiles flying from Roran's ship, so they're definitely using the ballista,
That's
lighting them on
awesome.
fire. I think the first one Aragon sees, though, does hit one of the Varden's command tents, so
like,
the aim's a little off.
He's
but-
like, move it to the left, to the left.
and, well, Aragon's first thought is like, what are you playing at, Roran? Firing upon me.
What's your game?
I really think he's a little suspicious at first, yeah.
Is he that pissed? He's gonna. Shoot, maybe he thinks he's an Empire agent.
Maybe. Ooh.
Oh, the betrayal was...
That'd be so interesting. Well, not for lack of Galbatorix trying.
That's
for
true.
real.
True.
For
It's true.
capturing him.
He was just trying to get an interview with Barb.
Yeah, exactly.
Spam. It's just spam calls.
The Razak are just spam callers.
They're like, look, your home warranty has run out.
Yes, I think that's it. So from the back of the Imperial force, we
Okay.
start hearing horns blowing,
Oh, no.
drums beating.
Oh, no.
It's very ominous. Nobody knows what's going on. All the soldiers, it's described, they get kind of quiet. My tummy starts to get butterflies. I get very nervous.
Like, oh, no.
And a red dragon appears in the sky with a rider in steel armor.
Oh, my God. What the fuck?
Yes, it's very bad. Aragon's like, holy shit,
Okay.
an egg has hatched. Galbatorix got an egg to hatch. He has a rider.
When you were a kid,
Yes.
what was your immediate reaction?
My first thought was, this is Galbatorix. We are so fucked. We
Oh,
could never
okay.
have been so fucked. I fully forgot that Galbatorix's dragon is black.
It's black. Yeah.
And Aragon doesn't think that. I think maybe Christopher Paolini realized later that people would have that thought.
Yeah.
And it's not till like the end of this fight that Aragon's like, well, the dragon's red, so it can't be Galbatorix. He like has
He, like,
that
walks
thought.
it through it for
Yes,
you.
and I'm like, thank you, Aragon. I needed that.
My first thought
Your girl
was,
is dumb.
was fucking cool. Red dragons are
Oh
dope
my
as hell.
God. Of course it was. Yeah, that makes sense.
I was just like, double the dragons. Dragon fight.
That does track for you, yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing the dragon does, unfortunately, is start to draw, like get juiced up, jacked up on power, and he
no.
fires some red, like electrical energy fire hybrid
Yeah.
from his palm and breaks through the defenses of like Hrothgar is surrounded by like a cadre of dwarven spellcasters with wards on him.
Uh-huh.
And this rider in one fell swoop breaks down all of the casters' defenses, drops them dead. They're screaming in agony. And Hrothgar clutches his chest. He like gives Hrothgar a heart attack, and Hrothgar
Fuck this guy.
dies. Farewell, dwarven daddy.
Well, it was all, his days were numbered.
I know.
At the moment he
adopting
adopted
Aragon is really, at this point, I think we can verify death sentence.
Yes, you
It's a
sign your death
problem.
warrant. Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Putting your name in the
big
death
problem,
note.
yeah.
Hrothgar.
It was tragic. And then all the dwarves around who like see their king fall, they're like beating their chests and tearing at their hair. Like they're feral. They're going crazy in their grief, which like, I do love the dwarven culture. I have like a little touchstone where I'm like, damn, good for them. They're
Yeah.
like, they loved their guy.
Well, he was so good.
He was so
Also,
good.
when I read this, I also was shocked by this because I just was like, Brahm's dead, Ajahad's dead,
Yes.
Murtag's dead. I was like,
Yes.
holy shit, dude.
I don't think as a kid I necessarily made the leap. Like for Brahm, at least, for sure, I was like, oh, he's a father figure to
Right.
Aragon. But with as far as like Ajahad and Hrothgar go, they didn't strike me as like obviously adopting him father figures. But in adulthood, I'm like, oh, actually, all those like older men did take him under their wing in ways. They did like mentor him a bit.
They tried,
also,
yeah.
I cannot believe I still have to say this, but I will not stand for this Garrow erasure. Dane. Add him to the roles.
Okay, sorry, Garrow died
He's
as
our
well.
first daddy gone.
You know what I forget, Garrow? Because he's written so horribly.
I know.
But like Hrothgar, I really liked even as
Yes.
a kid. I was like, he is the best dude.
Yeah.
I was so sad.
I was really sad. I was sad as an adult. Again, reading it, knowing it was going to
I
happen.
have to skip over the section. I can't read
Oh.
it.
Well, lest you forget, Dane, there is
Okay.
no time to think about that.
Oh,
We are
okay.
in a battle, and
Oh,
there's
shit.
another dragon and rider.
This is war.
This is war, sir. So Aragon, seeing this, transfers. Remember, he and Saphira are injured. They've been fighting for hours at this point. He's
Yeah.
already started to like dispel some of his wards because they're drawing too much of his energy. Like he is not in good shape.
Oh no.
And this rider looks very powerful. Like I don't know if Aragon could do what this rider just rolled up and did.
I don't think so.
So Aragon sees a horse stuck with an arrow that's a little bit on its deathbed and transfers the energy from it into him and Saphira, himself and Saphira. And it is described as like, it didn't replenish them all the way, but it like got pretty close. And I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, one horse. Okay.
I mean, I guess the horse has a lot of endurance.
I guess. Yeah, I'll dig it.
I don't know.
Like, how much longer was that horse going to live with the arrow in it?
It sounds like
was
the
it
horse
really
was-
on its deathbed?
It sounds like it was far from dead.
The horse had a scratch, and Aragon was like, "Hopeless for you, sir. My apologies,
just walked up to
noble
it.
steed."
puts the arrow in his own leg. Oh, it's stabbed. It's still...
I kind of think so. I'm not going to lie. Kind of a mess. We love Aragon, but you listen, it's a war, Dane.
Yes,
he needs to do what he needs to do. So
Sorry.
he transfers the energy. He like straps into his saddle, and he and Saphira take off to attack the enemy rider.
Yes, bad dragon fight.
Yes. And so as they get close, start to engage, Aragon immediately goes in with mind magic to try to break through this rider's defenses. They are iron strong, and the rider retaliates with a really powerful counterstroke to try to get through Aragon's defenses. The only thing Aragon can think of to do, which I do love, is recite to himself a dumb limerick that Oramus taught him. And it kind of works, actually.
Yeah. By reciting it over and over, he's focused enough to keep everything
exactly.
just locked in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so as this is going on, Saphira and the Red Dragon are engaging in a brutal fight in the air.
Okay, so this is what I'm imagining. They're in a brutal fight in the air, and he's going, bring around the rosies, pocket full of posies.
Basically,
ashes, they all fall. Yeah.
They all fall down. No, well, no, not down. Down to be bad.
Not down. Bring around the rosy, pocket full of posies.
I think so, yeah. And they, I mean, they're clawing, they're trying to use their breath weapons. There's clearly wards around this rider and dragon because Saphira jets fire at them, and it like forks into and flies around them to either side. Aragon is describing this, and he's like, I could barely hang on to fucking Zarok as all this is happening. Like, I'm terrified. The dragons are tumbling towards the ground. The battle's intensifying as the dragons are engaging in complex acrobatic maneuvers, and Aragon gets distracted because he becomes aware of, on the ground, not one, but two new powerful magicians attacking and killing Duvranger Gada. Triana radios over. She's like, shit is going south over here. Like, we're not going to be able to withstand it. And she cuts off.
Oh my God, no.
No, it's very bad. Aragon gets distracted, and he focuses back in on the fight between the dragons, and he executes the most incredible maneuver.
Yes.
Dane, I'm going to let you describe it.
Okay.
I did write a description, but now that I'm looking in your eyeballs, I'm like,
so cool.
You deserve to tell us what he does.
Just real quick, this is stuck with me forever. I think about this still.
I know.
Once a month.
Yes.
I think this is the coolest thing I've ever read.
So fade in. Exterior.
Red Dragon and Saphira have separated, and Aragon is like, they're above.
Yes.
Right? And there's a cloud. And Aragon like unstraps his legs.
He cuts through.
Yeah, he like cuts out, right? Stands up on the saddle, right? And then he's like, catch me. And then he just jumps.
Fucking
in the
crazy.
Air. It's fucking wild. He even has this thought like, what am I doing?
Yes.
And then he grabs like two hands of sword.
Yeah.
And then like all of a sudden the dragon bursts into vision because, you know, it's the cloud.
Yes.
And he like slams into the tail.
Yes.
Piece of the tail flips off. But he hits it so
crazy.
fast. He like starts spinning.
Yes, he goes like ricocheting off the dragon.
My God.
I think it is described somewhere in there. Of course, this is like the part that I latched onto because I was like, when the fuck were they practicing this?
Right.
I think Aragon says like, oh, he dipped his helm low and like spread his arms as Oramus taught him. And I'm like, they've been going over like free falling in flight
Aragon's
lessons?
been jumping off like Saphira for like weeks.
Crazy. Just
so cool.
Casual base jumping. That's our boy.
Just imagine like Aragon in Dwarven armor flying through the sky. That's so cool,
it's
dude.
So cool. So he definitely like grievously injures the red dragon.
Yes.
The screams are described as wild. Saphira does swoop in to catch him, of course.
Yes. She's not happy though.
Yes, no, she's not necessarily thrilled. So she rescues him, and now he understands that he's put her in like a bad position essentially with the red dragon because they're underneath and they're still trying to fight. As the dragon fight goes on, it's again described, I love this, because they're getting tired. So it's like they stop flapping their wings, they're just gliding.
It is kind of funny.
Yeah, and so Aragon and Saphira don't have a lot of play left, essentially. They're too close to the ground to continue evading. So Aragon's like, hey, Mom, drop me off.
Let's park the car.
Yeah, let's park the car. We'll get out. We'll talk to him in the parking lot, see what's up. So yeah, he has her pull over, land him. He's like, I'll just fight this dude on the ground.
Right.
That'll go well,
Ground
I bet.
fight.
Yes. So they pull over to a plateau red dirt looks familiar
Looks a
to
little familiar.
Aragon, which is never good, I think.
No.
Anything that he's seen before, with the exception maybe of the Crags of Telnir,
That's true.
it's probably not good.
It's probably not a good vision, bud.
Yes. Yes, it's a small stone plateau stained red with blood. Forgive. Did not mean to say the dirt was red.
Oh,
That's
well,
for
how
peasants.
dare
It's
you.
stained red with the blood of
His
thousands.
enemies, yeah.
It's not good. The enemy rider's dragon is very badly injured, they can still see as they land, but his enemy is able to quickly heal it with a relatively short spell. And Aragon's like, oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
Oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. He must be a very powerful magician. I
Yeah.
couldn't do that. So Aragon and the enemy rider engage. They cross swords, finally. Clash of the stick, poke.
Yeah. I honestly yelled out loud when I was a kid. I was like, yeah!
Of course you did.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we not just fighting with magic? Whatever.
No, because they're fighting with swords.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So Aragon's instantly realizing this enemy rider is showing like exceptional skill.
Yeah.
And there's something that feels off to him about the fighting style, Dane. And
What did you know? Did you know now?
No.
Okay.
Listen, I told you I'm really dumb.
No, you're not.
No, this was the part where I was like, fuck, who could this be? And this is the part where Aragon's like, well, the dragon's red, so it can't be Galbatorix. And I was like, yes, thank you.
It's not him.
Thank you, Bean Farmer. I needed that.
I, around this time, was starting to go, oh, no.
Oh, no. Well, I think maybe because you had more stakes in it, this is like
Yes.
the doom of your innocence.
It is.
So as Aragon's becoming exhausted, Zarok is growing heavier and heavier in his hand. And the chapter ends when the enemy rider has Aragon on his back foot and rips off his helm, reveals himself, Dane, to be Murtag,
It's Murtag.
Aragon's bestie.
Best blade,
I
bro.
know.
Which takes us to chapter 70, Inheritance. No! No! My sweet dark prince. My
I'm
emo
so
boy.
sorry for your loss.
My beautiful teen on the run from the law.
It's bad.
Ugh.
It's bad.
Murtag immediately hits Aragon with air.
Yeah.
And Aragon flies backwards. Aragon is so out of sorts inside his mind, just like me. I was like, oh no.
You and Aragon have this in common.
Yes, we were both like, what? No. And then it's just another dream that seems prophetic. I would just want to point this out.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on. I guess Aragon's able to see the future.
Yes.
Okay. So if you need that, I would just go back to the dreams. If you're like, what are you talking about, Dane? Just go back to the dreams.
Yes.
I think that becomes clear.
Yes.
Aragon still seems to be treating Murtag as a friend while they're fighting, and Murtag seems a
They
little
start
mean.
fighting with their words and their swords, Dane.
Yeah, and like the words are the ones that cut deepest, right?
Yes.
So Murtag seems a little mean here, and I might just be reading, like my reading, but as they discuss the fact that they both couldn't see each other when they tried to scry, it clicks home because they're having this conversation.
Yes.
While they're just standing there, kind of. The person trying to continually scry Aragon has been Murtag.
Yes, I definitely thought it was Galbatorix this whole time, but
Me
I
too.
liked this reveal because I was like, oh, of course it was his boy.
He was trying to find his friend.
bestie.
So Murtag explains what happened at the beginning of this
Yes.
book.
Flashback.
I know.
Backstory.
Cut interior caves Trondheim.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the beginning of this book, when he was coming back with Ajahad and the twins, Murtag was not killed. The twins took control over the Urgles that they had laid and arranged for an ambush just to
Boo.
kill Ajahad.
So the twins are our traitors, obviously.
They're the traitors. And
Definitely clear now.
yeah, they then used their mind magics to kidnap Murtag and took him to Galbatorix and Urobane. The twins were double agents the whole time.
No.
Surprisingly, Oramus was right.
That's so weird. That guy doesn't know shit.
Shocking. 800
I
years.
was truly surprised.
Yeah, 800 years old, and I guess you're right.
I like when I talked
sometimes.
about it, I was like, well, this is true now, and we all know it because we trust him. But this was the big reveal of
It
the
was,
twins.
yeah. And it finally makes sense. Much like Sloane, the twins are just dicks.
Yes, anyone who's just a dick for no reason, right off top, let's be suspicious.
Yeah,
in
we gotta be
this series.
suspicious of them. But also, they're the ones that got Aragon to Durza in the fight in the first book. They also told Ajahad that they had put wards on Aragon and they hadn't
Yes.
done that. I mean, we just should have seen it coming. So
Yeah.
surprising. Anyway, Aragon asks why Murtag has agreed to help Galbatorix. He's like incredulous.
Yeah.
And Murtagh like laughs
Yes, he's like, are you
bitterly.
fucking kidding me, dude? Like, we have also talked about this
Yeah,
before.
he's like, there was no choice.
I love that moment in a relationship where you're like, do I have to tell you again?
Yeah, seriously.
I told you once. I've been telling you.
Yeah, so
The therapist says you never listen to me.
that's healthy. First, though, he explains that the very first thing Gal does is punish him from running away from that first mission that we heard.
Yeah, that's right. When he was supposed to burn that whole village.
Yes. Galbatorix was still mad about that.
Oh, weird.
Then it sounds like Galbatorix decided to torture his mind just for funsies until Murtagh told him everything he possibly knew about Aragon, Saphira, and the Varden.
Fuck.
So, like, it's just horrible.
Well,
horrible.
it looks like a better and better decision that Naswada beat feet out of Trondheim pretty much immediately after that battle because they would have
Known.
Yeah, they would have gotten got.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, wild.
Yeah.
So then Aragon just isn't cool here. He talks about betrayal over and over. And at one point, he even said that Ajahad should have kept him locked up. Aragon's
Yes.
so mad.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal. And Murtagh goes on to say that Thorn, which we learn is the red dragon that he has,
Yes.
also coolest fucking name ever. I love it.
Oh my god.
Thorn. I've tried to name every dog I've had Thorn, and my wife has been like, not a chance. And I'm like, it's the most metal name.
You mean the dog that you guys almost named Gertrude? You
Yes.
also tried to name Thorn?
Yes, I was like, he will be a thorn unto his enemies.
I like that you only have girl dogs also.
Yes. So, yeah, right. Anyway, Galbatorix, once Thorn was born, made him and Murtagh swear allegiance in the ancient language to Galbatorix.
So do we know here, did Thorn hatch at Murtagh's touch, or
So
did Galbatorix force Thorn to hatch?
Murtagh says he hatched for me.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that like Galbatorix locked him in a room with an egg thinking this might work.
Yeah.
You know, and it did, right? So Aragon feels a mix of pity and disgust inside him.
Uh-huh.
Because it's like it's messing with him.
Yes.
Aragon then says, "You have become your father," because he's like, "You swore to the enemy, dude."
Yeah.
And this does not seem to bother Murtagh. Actually, Murtagh kind of like smiles,
Well,
and he goes on a tangent.
Murtagh's definitely, he's giving big unhinged vibes this whole time.
Oh yeah, it looks like he's lost it a little bit.
Yes, which is fair. And I think maybe, okay, so definitely he's been mind tortured by Gal.
Totally.
And that would unhinge you, understandably. But I think
Yes.
also like having to confront Aragon in this way,
Right.
I think is just dredging up so much like.
There's only one way to be. Murtagh's been forced into this position,
Yes.
right? Because like the other one is like be pityingly like a person, right?
Yes, and like the way that they were before the way they were in the last book,
Yeah.
Murtagh, I really always got the feeling like he was trying to explain the ways of the world to Aragon. Like, listen,
Right.
this is how people perceive us, or like, this is how people perceive me. This is how I have to act because of it. I'm pragmatic, this and that. Like, he was
Right.
really walking Aragon through a lot of that. And even though they might argue, like, he was ultimately kind of gentle about it. It's like, this is more of that, but turned to 27 with like hint of insanity.
Yeah, a sprig of insanity and a little bit of like, you're an idiot.
Yes.
Like there's an element of like you're just dumb as hell.
Yeah.
So he says he knows dark secrets,
Ooh.
forgotten ancient language that only Galbatorix knows.
That cannot be good.
No. And says things that Brahm knew were nothing compared to what he has been taught.
Fuck.
He talks shit on the elves and calls them cowards.
Well.
Which, you know, I actually was like, Murtagh's not always wrong. You know what I mean? Then he remarks,
just love him.
remarks in a mean way that Aragon looks an awful lot like an elf now, insinuating kind of backhandedly that Aragon's a coward. It's
Yeah.
like pretty intense. Aragon and Murtagh look at the twins at this point. Like there's a break in their conversation, and the twins are on like a top of like a. It's like the way I've always pictured it is like a siege engine.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's actually
And they are
true.
the threat that Triana and Duvranger Gata were like, holy shit.
Yes, I imagine,
These
by the
guys
way,
are back.
when Triana keeps radioing to Aragon, she's getting like, do.
Busy signal.
Yeah, like, Aragon's busy right now. It's like-
Hold, please. We thank you for your patience while you hold.
Yeah. I kind of imagine that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the twins are up there throwing fireballs at the Varden, and they see Roran
Not great.
sneaking up behind the twins.
Yes.
And Aragon starts to freak out because he wants to help Roran, right?
I think this is my favorite scene in the book.
It's pretty.
I'm not gonna
fucking
lie.
cool. There's a lot going on in this scene
Yes.
too, right? Because Murtagh like shows a dark streak here, a real dark streak where I'm like,
Yes.
oh, dude. And he wants to see what happens, and he like puts his hands out, and he's like, no, I hate the twins because they tortured me when I was traveling to Galbatorix. I promise I will not intervene at all.
Yes.
Just stay here and watch.
I like it.
It's kind of dark.
It's really dark,
Yeah.
but I think it says so much about Murtagh's character, and I think within the confines of like what he's been tortured into, it's kind of all he can do.
Yes.
Is like some maybe planned inaction for a while,
Yes.
but it's just everything about it is so good.
So good. Roran sneaks up. And he's right by one of the twins. He pulls out his hammer, smacks him in the head, and oddly, that twin's not the only one that collapses. When that
Yes.
twin falls down dead, the other
Fucking
one
crazy
collapses in like epilepsy shock.
Roaring in his sandals.
Yeah,
and his
right.
hammer.
So Roran then quickly hits that one on the ground. He like makes sure the job's done.
Yes, yeah.
Kills the second one too for
Oh.
sure. Then Roran stands like a crazy person, raises his hammer above him, and just starts yelling. And I like to imagine he's just like, strong hammer!
I mean, 100%. Yeah.
For sure.
What else would you say?
And I will say,
Maybe
knowing-
Katrina.
Right.
For Katrina.
For Katrina! For Caval! Okay.
No, only Katrina.
Yeah, it's true.
The man is single-minded, Dane.
That's true.
He saw a dragon and he was like, I'll be able to rescue Katrina.
First thought.
Yeah, crazy.
What I imagine though too is Roran did exactly what he said. I think he did change the fate of Alagasia.
100%.
Fucking wild. Anyway, Aragon asks Murtagh if he's going to kill him.
Yes.
He's like, are you going to kill me? And Murtagh's like, nah, dog. Gal wants you, dude.
Still, which is crazy.
Yeah, because Thorn's a boy.
Yeah.
And we learn that Gal somehow knows the other egg is also a boy.
Oh.
Which means Saphira is the only female dragon in existence.
Shit.
So Gal can't let her die.
Shit.
So Murtagh then waxes poetically about Galbatorix's vision of the future. And this is really amazing. I love this part because Aragon calls him mad,
Yeah.
calls him liar,
Yep.
calls him a killer. He
Yep.
points out that like this is why you didn't want to work with Galbatorix in the first place. Galbatorix is bad.
Yes, and Murtagh himself told the story about his weird 18th birthday Rainforest Cafe dinner where Galbatorix was like the most compelling man he'd ever met, like silver tongue like a snake, all that shit. And it's like, okay, so now you're just fully bought in.
Yeah.
And like don't have that like tick to remember why you were put off by it in the first place.
And I think what Chris Paolini is going here is like he remembers, but he's got no other option
yeah.
here.
What was it? A more terrifying and convincing man I've never met.
Yeah, dude. Ugh. So anyway, Aragon asks Murtagh to join him and explains that there has to be a way to remove the bonds tying him to Gal. They can work around the oaths. That they're like when Murtagh reveals the truth, like that Galbatorix knows him and Thorn's true names.
Fuck.
There's no way out. Murtagh can't disobey. He can't leave. He has sworn in the ancient language, and Galbatorix knows his true name.
Fuck.
He's Galbatorix's bitch now, essentially.
Bad.
Yeah. Aragon then says something that shocks me every single time I read it. I remember as a kid be like, what? Aragon says, quote, then let us kill you.
Jesus.
And Murtagh's like,
No.
He said, he says, I would rather be evil than die or
Yeah.
have Thorn die.
I mean,
And I gotta say, I cannot believe Aragon tried this. There would be a rare person that would be like, yes.
do you think Aragon would take that bargain?
Yes.
Okay.
In a second.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only reason he would say something
because
like that.
he would do
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Classic projection. Looks like he needs some therapy from Elva.
It's so true. Murtagh basically says, you might be honorable, you might be good enough to do that, but quote, no stranger's life is more important than Thorn's or my own.
And that's consistent for Murtagh.
Oh, yes.
He's always been like that.
He's always been like that. And Aragon and Saphira jump at Murtagh. They like basically like I think they have like a mind look, like where they look at each other.
Yeah.
And Aragon starts to charge, and Saphira fucking jumps in the air at Murtagh.
Bonkers.
And then Murtagh just holds up his hand, and Saphira hangs in the air, trapped in air, and
So
Aragon
crazy.
also frozen in air. And I'm like, how is he doing this?
Yes, he's so powerful.
He's-
It is so terrifying.
Aragon couldn't do this.
No.
This is fucking wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, how Murtagh? Anyway, Aragon starts to resist with magic. He's like
Yes.
pushing back. You know, they're having like a tug of war.
Uh-huh.
He quickly runs out of energy.
Yeah.
Minutes go by. He's now using Saphira's energy. His body's about to give up.
Fuck.
And he gives up. And Murtagh tells him there's no hope. And he walks over, and I don't truly understand this. He pricks Aragorn's skin and talks about how easy it would be to take him.
Yeah.
And I don't remember this. Aragorn starts to plead, bringing
Yes.
up that they're friends, that if he does this, he really is the evil guy. And it seems to work. I will say this seems to work.
Yeah.
Because Murtagh tells him, and this is also kind of savage,
Yeah.
he's ordered to try and capture Saphira and Aragorn.
Yeah.
That's it. That was the words. So he's followed that order, and he can leave them. That this is the only free pass he's allowing. The next time, he's not going to be nice, because Galbatorix is going to be mad.
Shit.
And then he unbuckles Zarok,
Oh.
takes the sheath, takes the sword, and he explains that Zarok is his inheritance, as he's the older son. Bum, bum, bum. Morzan is Aragorn's dad.
Ah!
Murtagh is Aragorn's brother. Aragorn's heart breaks as Murtagh tells Aragorn that Selena, and he does this whole thing where he's like, we never mentioned our mother's name.
Yeah. I'm
My
like, okay.
Yeah, well, at first it's like, what the fuck is this guy going to?
Yes.
And he's like, my mother's name is Selena. And Aragorn's like, wait, what? And then he's like, the twins found out when they went through your brain. We're brothers. Selena's
Of all
my
people
mom.
to have known, I remember being like incensed by this too. That like
Yes.
of all people to find this shit out, it had to have been those fucking guys.
twins,
Ugh.
dude. So Aragorn thinks about Angela's prophecy, and he knows it's true. He has
Yes.
been betrayed by his betrayed by
Yes.
his family. Poor Aragorn. Murtagh just hops on Thorn and leaves.
Crazy.
And although the Varden had won the battle, the Empire soldiers are in retreat.
Yep.
Aragorn cries because he has lost.
Yes, dude. So much.
Oh my god.
Brutal.
Fucking brutal.
Did you see that coming?
No.
No. Then neither did I. I mean, maybe you were starting to get inklings about Murtagh, but not the like.
Not the brother thing.
Yes, not the like off-brand Luke, I am your father.
Well, okay.
Luke, I am your brother.
So I did have this idea though that like I did think maybe like I thought for sure we were seeing like proof of Morzan's parentage. Because remember, all the blades are the same color as their dragons.
Yes.
And Murtagh's dragon is red.
Yes, and Zarok's red.
Zarok's red.
Yeah,
so I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, it makes sense. The red one hatched for him. And then I started thinking, like, dude, are different dragons different personalities?
Yeah.
I started going down that road.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to know a lot more about that. But
Me
yeah,
too.
I think I was the same. I think I was kind of not holding out like hope, but kind of had the idea going into this that like somehow Galbatorix was going to end up being Aragorn's dad, just because like that feels very classic monomyth kind of
yeah.
vibes, you know?
Like Luke, I'm your father type
Yes,
thing.
I definitely thought that, especially, I mean, it's like, okay, we have an orphan. We know who his mom is.
Yeah.
We know she was around in the Empire. What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought something was going to happen with, I mean, obviously something was building with Selena. I like
Yes.
it as been building from the first book, from like the beginning.
Yeah.
I just was sad for, I will say this, as a kid, I legitimately felt bad for Aragorn. And I will say this is the start of me feeling like Aragorn just gets his ass kicked every fucking chapter.
Yeah, he really can't catch a break
He
in a lot of
can't.
ways.
Like,
Well, let's head to our very last chapter summary for Eldest.
All
It's
right.
chapter 71, Reunion.
oh my God.
Existential crises abound. So Aragorn and Saphira, this chapter opens as we're like post-battle. They're moving their way through the burning plains among the corpses and survivors, mangled people, hollow-eyed people, grieving people,
Lots of people.
bad, sad people. It's your classic battle's over and things
Are bad.
Yes, even when you win, you lose kind of
Yeah.
is the vibe. Aragorn is feeling this in a big way. He's feeling like a lot of grief, feeling like fighting's pointless. This is again where we see his like tick back to respect for life. Like all this killing is absolutely horrific, kind of irredeemable. And he notices Saphira's injuries, which is like, oh, good. You're in her mind.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man.
He notices that she's like actually pretty fucked up, and he offers to heal her. And she's like, no. Save your strength. Like, tend to those who are maybe on the brink of death. I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
Basically. So I like her.
She's so
in that.
nice.
Yeah, she's the best. And so as Aragon's walking around and like looking for people to tend to, basically doing field medic work.
Yeah.
He's ruminating about Murtag's big reveal, and he kind of realizes that what Murtagh said about Selena disappearing from Morzan's castle, she must have been pregnant with Aragon at that point. And it kind of coincides with what Aragon knows to be true about his mom and like the stories that he's kind of heard about her. And he feels like, weirdly, this makes him feel a little bit better. He's like, oh, she really must have loved me to try to protect me from that.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
I mean, and he's right? I think he's right. I think that's like probably the only
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, I'm glad he's like enlightened indeed
well,
to be looking on the bright side of that.
At least one positive thing, at least.
Yeah. And so he is also remembering, like, he's always wondered about his father, and he always was like, I wish I just had a name.
Oh no.
It's like, well, maybe you're less glad now.
You got Stalin.
Yes. Yeah. And he's like, he is weird. He's conflicted here a little bit too. I think he's initially kind of glad to just have an answer, he thinks to himself. I feel like he's really giving Roran energy here with all the ruminating.
Well, I think he's in a little bit of a tailspin.
Yes, I think so too.
I think he's all over the place. I don't think he knows how he feels.
I think so too. How could you? I mean, he's kind of in shock. He must be.
I think that's what this is supposed to be. I think he is in shock.
Yeah, I think so too. So he's kind of initially glad to know who his dad is, but then is just absolutely revolted knowing that it's a monster.
Ugh.
First, last, and strongest of the Forsworn, betrayed the riders, like was the guy who allowed Galbatorix to do
worst,
a genocide.
Yeah, it's the worst Forsworn.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
If it would have been any other, one of the third tiers Forsworn.
Third tier, yeah.
Yeah, number 12, Like,
the guy was like, I think we're going to do it.
I think the 12 of us could do this.
Yeah, and I've never been like as nice as the rest of the riders. I'm not like evil. I just like don't pay my taxes.
Exactly.
That kind of guy.
That guy, yeah.
So Aragon is feeling like he's like sullied as a person. His identity is like somehow dirty now because of this revelation. And as he's thinking, I do really like, he gets here pretty quickly, and I really was like kind of touched by this. He realizes that Garrow, his uncle, who raised him, taught him to live well, taught him to live honorably, gave him the values that he still tries to live by, that is his father.
Yeah.
And like, remember when Garrow died and Aragon was like, I barely have the right, like, I don't even have the right to call him
he got
father.
mad at Katrina, yeah.
Yes. So I think this is a really good full circle moment for Aragon with regard to like daddy, uncle, daddy. And it's like, no, that's my fucking dad. That guy raised me. He taught me everything I know. I am who I am because of him.
I totally agree. And justice for Garrow. Finally, he's feeling that way.
Yes, I think so, for sure. Justice for Garrow. I like that. So he's determined to maintain this point of view, even though he knows about Morzan. And then he starts thinking, which again, I'm like, damn, who taught you all this shit, Aragon? He starts thinking about the possibility that Brom knew all of this all along.
I'm thinking maybe he's right.
And chose to hide in Carvajal to keep an eye on him. He's very unsettled by this idea, but remember, Brom knew Selena. He knew quite a bit about her personally.
Carvajal was like a weird pick.
Yes, for sure, for a former writer.
Well, he was just waiting it out too, right? He knew he was going to work again.
Yeah.
So yeah, something's up with that.
Yeah, definitely very, very off. Very strange. Aragon is unsettled by this. And I'm like, damn, you are hitting all the right notes here, Aragon. Good for you.
Well, he's got enough school now where he's actually starting to think.
Yes, exactly.
The brain teasers are working.
Well, then Aragon starts thinking too, like, what if that means like Brom knew that I'm the son of a huge dick and considered that I might be a threat someday. Like that's why he came to keep an eye on me.
Like colors the relationship a little differently.
Yes. And so and this is what he's like really mulling over and discussing with Saphira here, because he's like, well, what was brought, like what could he have been up to? Like what did he think we were a threat?
Yeah, I don't know. Because would you really be worried about the kid of the writer? Like, what's the chance that like that kid gets an
Just is
egg?
evil.
Yeah, or even just gets like the chance to have the power to be to use their evil.
Well, and then we don't necessarily know like if being a dragon is like a heritable trait. So
yeah, it kind of seems weird to me. It kind of seems like it's not. It's been implied. I feel like that it's just random.
Yeah, I kind of got that vibe too. But he and Saphira are discussing this when they come upon Auric and the other dwarves mourning the death of their king. My chapter is sad today.
I know.
Thanks so much.
I'm so
glad I
sorry.
got the dragon fight, but this is a bummer.
I'm about to say you did get the cool dragon fight.
I know. Auric asks Aragon if he was able to kill the person responsible for Hrothgar's death. Because Aragon's first thought, he was right next to Hrothgar when he died. And he was like, I will avenge my dwarven daddy, and went after Murtagh. And so Auric's like, you kill him, that motherfucker? And Aragon's like, no, I didn't. And also, it was that guy that we knew.
It was my friend.
It was my friend. Whoopsie doodle.
And also maybe my brother.
Yes, Auric vows to avenge Hrothgar's death on Murtagh, which Auric is. Auric shows some steel here. He's like vicious.
Yeah.
He's always been so nice and positive, and now I'm like, oh shit, should we have been very scared of Auric all along?
I love it too because it's such a. I mean, this guy is a powerful writer that like basically bitch slapped Aragon, and Auric is like, nah. Everything at my disposal will be used to kill that man. It's awesome.
Yes, it's the best. So Aragon offers to help with this, which I'm like, okay, cool. So you want to murder Murtagh now?
Revenge.
Interesting.
Revenge.
Revenge will do it. And Auric explains that they need to return Hrothgar's body to Farthendur so he can be entombed with his predecessors, Hall of the Kings, all of that.
Auric.
And they're going to need to select a new king.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
I
And
forgot about that.
Aragon offers to share some mead with Auric to toast to Hrothgar's memory. But Auric declines to continue mourning with the other dwarves.
Oh.
I know, it's just very sad. Aragon and Saphira continue their journey through corpse field of the burning plains. It's very bleak. They run into Roran, and Roran meets Saphira formally, and he's surprised by her intelligence. He has kind of a tough look at first. He's like, I just thought you were an animal.
I thought you were like a horse.
Like, fuck, Roran, shut your mouth. She's gonna roast you.
Not only
literally.
Is she a person, she's like a wise primordial creature.
Not great.
Yeah.
And they also are like powwowing at this point with Niswada and Arya to discuss the best way to like get the warriors across the river and kind of clean up essentially the battle. And Aragon, Roran, and Saphira kind of come upon this conversation between Niswada and Arya. Niswada is very relieved to see Aragon alive.
Yeah.
Introduces herself to Roran, thanks him for killing the twins.
Hell yeah.
Yes, bright spot. Roran, I think, is a little like off put by Niswada at first. He's just like, he's a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like he's a little out of his depth here.
He's like queen of the leader queen.
Queen president, general queen president.
King of the
I pledge myself to you. No. He doesn't.
Pulls
He's
out
not
his
his
hammer,
cousin.
kneels.
I'm surprised though, to be honest. I thought we were getting like an immediate holy shit, my liege. So Aragon tells Niswada about his and Saphira's fight with Thorn. And also I hate this for Aragon that like he just goes through probably the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to him, bar none.
Pretty horrible.
Pretty bad. I mean, yeah, with the exception of just like a lot of personal deaths.
Well, also seeing his whole village and Roran on top of that.
Yes.
And his friend betrayed him. And his adopted father dies.
And now he just has to walk around like shoving bodies out of the way, like reliving that experience to person after. He's like, okay, well, I got to tell Auric, and now I'm going to have to tell. And I feel like some of the worst things that happen to you, maybe not the worst, but like some of the worst parts of grieving something traumatic that happens is like knowing you're going to have to tell people about it and trying to figure out how you're going to fucking say everything. And so that's what he's kind of going through now. I feel that very strongly in this part. Yes. So he tells Niswada that it was Murtagh, that the dragon's name is Thorn, that they're very powerful and they're very fucked.
And her first comment was, Thorn? Dope name.
Weirdly, it was not, but it should have been. Naswada is really torn up about Murtag's betrayal, which I'm like, R.I.P. their relationship.
I know. How are they going to work through that?
I know. And she tells Aragon and Roran that she personally is in debt to Roran for killing the traitors who murdered her father, which I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Stronghammer strikes again.
Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah.
And they continue to discuss like urgent matters with the armies and, you know, the riders.
Yes.
She agrees to let Roran stay for all this discussion about Murtag, like what they're going to do about this new rider threat. And Aragon is feeling, as they like leave this interaction, he's feeling really grateful. Both Naswada and Arya reacted to the news. He told them that he's Morzan's son.
Yeah.
And both of them were like, dude, I'm really sorry. Like, we love you. We support. Essentially, they were just like very good, supportive friends.
Yes.
And like Saphira also is being like very comforting and supportive. He's just like, damn, all the women. He literally has this thought that like all the women I know are
nice,
the best.
Yeah.
They are killing the game right now. And they do kind of decide, I think, that, and Aragon hears this, I think, from Auric as well, that it would definitely be best if they don't tell most people. Like, the Varden will be really demoralized to know that one of kind of the heroes of the Battle of Farthendur, Murtag, has turned tail and betrayed them. They're also going to be very disheartened to know that Aragon is also Morzan's son. So they're like, why don't we just
I agree with this.
Keep this between us for now. Yeah, I definitely do too. So as Aragon and Roran leave to have a little bit of alone time, finally, they're talking outside. Roran's very surprised to find out that the Varden's run by General Queen President instead of Ajahad. And Aragon's like, I mean, yeah, you visually would be looking for him, but like she is just as badass, if not more, just
she's the
so you
improvement.
know. Yes. And then they're interrupted by Jode, Horst, and the villagers from Carvajal.
This was cool.
Yeah, Aragon's really happy to see them again, but really feels alien among them. He feels very out of place. It's pretty immediate.
They treat him a little different.
Yes, for sure. I mean, nobody knows what to do to him. He's like a rock star at this point.
Yeah, you know what? I think honestly, this is like a demigod thing.
Yes.
He's he's a all-powerful, undying being.
Yeah, lonely at the top, kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
Yes. Jode is really happy he's able to meet Saphira for the first time in person, because she never got to come into Tyrim when they were there.
I'm not gonna lie, this always gives me chills.
When Jode meets Saphira.
Yeah, because it's so nice.
Because he saved her egg.
Yes,
he was like,
he did
I've known
it.
you since you were a baby.
Yeah,
it's really cute.
It's so nice.
Yeah, so he's very happy to meet Saphira. He thanks Aragon for rescuing him from Galbatorix too. He's like, I was fucked in Tyrim, and like, look at me now, baby. Roran orders the men from Carvajal to disembark from the ship, take the food and shelter offered by the Varden. So they're throwing their lot in, hitching their star to this wagon.
It worked. Roran's whole plan worked.
Yeah, dude. And Aragon asks Roran if he speaks for all the villagers of Carvajal now. Roran's like, yes, I am their military dictator. Thank you for asking.
He's like, of course.
Yes. And as Aragon and Roran like settle into a tent for the night, Roran asks Aragon to tell him how Garrow died. And Aragon recounts the story, doesn't leave out any detail at this point. He's like, yes, you deserve to know the truth. He admits he was wrong to hide Saphira from the family. They get in a fist fight because brother cousins.
Yeah. This is the most bean farmer thing I've ever seen. They just start punching each other.
A little bit, but they get over it pretty quickly. I think it's one of those, it's definitely written in the style of like, they just had to get it out of their systems and now they're fine. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
But they reunite, and Aragon recounts the rest of his adventures too, since they last saw each other. And Roran updates Aragon about the Razak's capture of Katrina and like what the hell has happened to him since all of that has gone down, which is a crazy story.
I'm imagining them in the tent, all the lights are off, they're in like sleeping bags next to each other. They're having like a camp talk. Yeah.
I think they would need one light, because the next part of this is that Aragon's horrified, obviously, that Katrina's gone. He's like, I wanted her to be my sister-in-law. I love her. And he uses some enchanted fail nerve. I'm like, does this make it an ultra scry? But he uses some enchanted fail nerve to show Roran that Katrina is still alive in Helgrind. So they scry her. She is in prison though. She doesn't like look great. I'm imagining she's still kind of hot, but like just slightly less hot. Well, important note to end this emotional chapter on.
She probably doesn't smell either.
Exactly how hot is she?
Like crushed rutabaga.
Rutabaga.
She smells of crushed rutabaga and
I
wheat.
would believe that, yeah. So Roran they see Katrina, imprisoned, and Aragon agrees, of course, to help Roran rescue Katrina and avenge their father's death by killing the Razak.
Yes.
And we end the book in this season in your favorite place, Dane.
Yeah.
It's a revenge plot.
A revenge plot. Although I will say, Christopher Paolini has been really running this revenge plot ragged.
I know. I can't believe. Sometimes I think about this series and I'm like, holy shit. I think on this reread specifically, I'm like, damn, I really forgot the Razak have been living on borrowed time this long.
So this next book better start with them immediately getting revenge.
First chapter, first sentence.
Yes.
Razak died.
Yes. Roran trudged his hammer into a Razak's skull.
Yes, that is kind of what I'm
start.
expecting. It is shocking. 2 books in, halfway done with the series, and those fuckers are still just
still kicking,
flying in and out of Murder Mountain.
Didn't they show up chapter 7
yes.
of book 1?
Yes, crazy.
Yeah.
So they've got some staying power. They're like the cockroaches of Allegasia, unfortunately. But I do want to kick off our final segments on Eldest.
Let's do it,
with
man.
this episode's analysis. You ready?
I'm not. I'm sad. But
It's time for analysis.
Okay, I'm ready.
I stay ready, so I don't have to get ready. That's a thing I tell myself.
Oh my God.
That's part of my rise and grind lifestyle, Dane.
You look at the man and you're like, I was born ready.
No, I actually, as far as themes go here, I want to do a little sum up, touch on a couple things that take place throughout the book. I think we really have dived deeply, to borrow a phrase, Dane, into a lot of themes throughout this book. So I don't want to spend a long time just harping back and retreading a bunch of ground. That seems like an insane thing to do to the very nice people who have listened thus far. So I think for me, I'm kind of thinking of it in terms of comparison to the book Aragon.
Okay.
Its predecessor. So where the first installment in the inheritance cycle, it was a very clear-cut coming-of-age story to me. No bones about it, no qualms. I think here Christopher Paolini is continuing that idea to a certain degree, but he's also layering themes a lot in this book, I think. So where all the individual section by section themes in Aragon kind of added up, they were almost like pieces in a puzzle of a coming of age theme. Here I think we're starting to get some nuanced layers, things that are a little more mature, a little bit grittier. So we've talked so far about, making decisions under pressure, which all the characters have been doing right and left, the way your identity can burden you, your cultural touchstones.
Tell me about it.
Who you are can really burden you, but also give you your values and your purpose. Identity can really be a dual-sided kind of beast. And I think a lot of the characters in this book, specifically our POV characters, have been working through that this entire time. I think respect has come up in so many ways as we've gotten this political undercurrent culture clash. I think a lot of that ties back to the way that people respect each other in this world. I think a huge part of this book has been, your connections and finding strength in community and having strength in numbers, and the flip side of that, which is what it costs you to be alone in the world and the price you pay for that. I love the exploration of that throughout this book. Obviously, threats have been ever present here, and not just Roran doling them out right.
Roran might actually be the most tame of all the threats, frankly.
Yes, I mean, most concrete, sure. Most in your face about it. But
most frequently brought up.
Yes, but probably the least existential and world-changing of the threats we face throughout this book. And then, obviously, in one of our recent episodes, the theme of prejudice has come up here, and we're really starting to dig in and explore that. That, for me, of all of them, is maybe more of a starting point in this book that I see us continuing to explore later, where the rest of these ideas, I think, have really been fleshed out throughout our 3 point of view characters'
They've
stories.
had a longer runway. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, I think so. And I think overall, I'm left with the impression that we're still talking about and watching our characters grow, change, come of age in certain ways, but through a lens that feels more nuanced, like
Okay.
just more layered, more realistic in a lot of ways, fewer clear-cut answers for a lot of the questions we're posing.
Yeah, Aragon's starting to have a little bit more nuanced thoughts inside.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what I wanted to definitely talk about and bring up is the multiple point of view device that Christopher Paolini started employing in his writing style in this book. I think
Yes.
so much of that helps us to get this like complex and layered view of not only the characters, but the world that they all live in,
Yeah.
the story that they're all like plodding along together start to finish in this book. I think I know I talk a lot about it being a really smart device, but I think there really is not another really good way to show us how different people are able to move about this world and show us, instead of telling us like what this world is like, what these people are going through, how they're interacting in the world.
Yes.
And so I really think, having the layered points of view really reinforces the idea that we're layering all these themes on top of one another. We're kind of building
Yeah.
on something.
Well, even we talked about it, I think maybe last episode or the episode before, even the perspective with Roran being kind of like less grand in some way than Aragon.
Yes.
Everybody around him ends up kind of being the same. So even the like seeing the like I imagine like small town like magic user on those boats
Yes.
at shooting an arrow and stuff. I think stuff like that is giving us it is a really good device to show us.
Well, yes, the
difference.
contrast
Yes.
essentially in all the different point of view characters, because and I love that we have them in a triad here in a group of three. I think if it were just Aragon and Roran, in a lot of ways, like, yes, you could draw some clear cut comparisons and contrast, and you would have built a theme out of like duality essentially had that been the book.
Right.
But I think because we also have Niswada, like, to me, what that gives us is shades. Like, I kind of picture it like a Venn diagram, essentially, where like maybe Aragon and Niswada have this like upper echelons situation in common, but then Aragon and Roran have their upbringing in common, and Roran and Niswada have their like non-magic use and like distrust kind
their
of
view
wizardry.
of the world. Yeah,
a lot of their worldview in common. So I think we're getting a really nuanced picture in a lot of ways of a world that can be reduced to good and evil.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart way to build some complexity here in something that maybe can come off as shallow if you're not
Totally agree.
looking for it. So as far as themes go, I think that's where I'm going to wrap the other two things I want to talk about. The first one is a lot of the religious motifs and symbolism that's in this book. It abounds. There's
a lot of it.
so much here. For me, I mean, it largely ties back to a lot of Christian ideas and motifs, but there are a lot of different cultures and mythologies that we've talked about along the way that come up and play a big part here. I mean, I think, white person in America, it's hard to stray too far from a Christian identity and mythology. I mean, I'm not religious, but I think both Christopher Paolini and I, the time and place that this book was written, kind of the ages we were, a lot of this makes sense to me.
Yes.
For me, I get Roran having very clear ties to like a Moses type figure, threats of slavery over his people, being the leader of like an oppressed people in a lot of ways, leading an exodus of those people to a figurative promised land, whirlpool, but it parts the sea. We see the bottom of the ocean in that whirlpool. It gives me like light Red Sea vibes.
Yes, totally.
I mean, I prefer to compare it to the Odyssey, obviously, like I did, but I think you can also make that tie too.
Yeah, it's. I would think it's totally apt.
Yeah, Aragon, as we've talked about, and I'm not going to again tread over and over this. He's been reborn as a savior, new body, wounds gone, very Jesus-like in a lot of ways.
New body, who this?
Yes, new body, who dis. But I think in other mythologies as well, we've seen the Tree of Life play a huge role in this story in Aragon's rebirth. So I think tying it to some other cultures and mythologies is really important here. I think having a lot of these like more Eastern religious ideals that crop up in like the figure of Oramus and some of the elven culture and touchstones, not religion because they don't have one allegedly.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. But yes, they have, I think, a lot of like good karma, morals.
Yeah, even just specifically every being is alive, every being's life matters the same. There's a lot of that in there.
Yes, for sure. And then I think too, even as far as Elva goes, we have a lot of that like mythological changeling fairy like motif coming in there. And I think the book in general, I think this primes us really well as readers, all these connections for this book to revolve to a certain extent in some of the scenes, in some of the cultures, to revolve around different religions and beliefs of the cultures in this world. Yeah. That's something we've discussed at length.
Yeah, praise Sindri.
yes. Hail Sindri, praise be. But yeah, getting that whole exposition of the dwarven religion, getting Aragon's albeit brief thoughts about what passes for religion in Carvajal, and then getting the elves like take on alleged atheism. I think having this religious symbolism throughout the book really sets the stage for Aragon to be grappling with that throughout this book. I think
totally agree
with his own belief system. And I think too, for me, it feels like something, maybe this is just projection. Maybe I have this in common with Aragon.
Oh no.
But I think it feels like something a lot of people start to question around this time in their lives. Like around the time Christopher Paolini wrote this book, On the Heels of Aragon, Success of Aragon, he's early 20s now. I think really in a lot of people's lives, that's when you start to break away from your family, the beliefs you were raised with, start to question things, maybe ultimately return or forge a new path in your identity and your beliefs. So I think it feels very apt to be exploring in this book, given the age he was when he wrote it.
What he's going through in his own life.
Kind of places you back in that time period. And the last thing I want to touch on before I wrap up analysis for season 2 is a symbol that runs throughout this book. I mean, it's a little shallow, but I just want to touch on it because it's fucking everywhere. We talked about it lightly in one of the recent episodes. We've had so many storms in this book.
So many.
Yes, this book is just kind of a hurricane. I think I'd be remiss if I weren't like, look for the storms.
Wait, did it break?
The storm broke, I think.
Okay.
So the storms usually obviously like a common literary device. They're gathering along with an ominous and nebulous threat to whatever character is happening to be in the stormy scene. But I have noticed a particular way that Christopher Paolini seems to pose this. He's not alone in it. It's not like unique, but it seems like a pattern for him for sure, that typically when the storm breaks, like in the action, the threat that the storm represents ends up being resolved positively for our characters. Like it's not usually like the storm breaks and everything goes to shit.
Okay.
Like usually the storm breaks and like maybe things are dicey, but we kind of survive.
Feel better about it.
Yes, there's a little sigh of relief after a breaking storm.
The storm's over.
Yeah, so I only wanted to bring it up in the sense that like it's something I'm going to keep an eye on, I think, for the next 2 books.
Stormwatch 2023.
Stormwatch. Yes, I'm now, call me your weather girl.
Oh, perfect. I love this.
Yes, so that's the end of my analysis for Eldest.
You did a lot of fantastic analysis. For Eldest. You did a lot of great analysis this season.
Thank you. Are you ready to take us on a final deep dive?
Final deep dive.
Deepest, diviest?
It's the deepest and diviest. No, I think this week's deep dive for this episode, I'd like to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Rather than focus on one race or person or idea, I'd like to compare like 3 of our characters' journeys now that we have kind of an ending for this book.
Hell yeah.
As they seem to be similar journeys with very different outcomes and people.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to compare the journey of Aragon, Roran, and Murtagh.
Okay.
The 3 brothers, if you will. Yeah.
Yes. Brother, cousin, brothers.
Brother, cousin. Anyway, Aragon, Roran, and Murtagh are 3 distinct characters in this story, and each of them have like a unique upbringing and goal and moral compass. So with Aragon, we have like a classic hero with a straightforward arc.
That's our boy.
He comes from humble beginnings as a farm boy, but as we know, his life was changed when he discovers Saphira's egg and becomes the first new dragon rider.
Yes.
In over a century.
Yeah.
Through his training and like with legendary figures with the ex-rider Brom and the ancient elven elder rider Oramus.
Slayer of the Forsworn Brom and ancient amongst their order.
For 800 years, Oramus.
Yes.
Yeah. And with the help of his powerful dragon with the ancient and wise wisdom of only her kind, Saphira,
Yes.
Eragon makes a moral choice. He ends up making this moral choice to fight for the Varden against an oppressive ruler,
Yeah.
King Galbatorix. And we see this in this book. The choice is motivated by large ideals. So
Yeah.
like good and evil, like ultimately.
Yes. Tent pole.
Yes. And he really does think of it in that terms.
Yeah, I think so. Tent pole, black and white. I mean, we're starting to get some nuanced morality from Eragon, but where his main mission is concerned,
Yes.
it's really good and evil.
Yeah, and even the idea when they start talking about with Ormus, it's like Eragon does not believe that Galbatorix can go unpunished
Yes.
for his past or even current crimes.
Yes. Or
So-
future too. He
Ye-
kind of bundles in like even if the war, right? That's part
Yes,
of his
he's
like value
cost
system.
life, it would be better than the future.
Yes, then the future lives that Galbatorix is sure to take.
Right, large. That's everyone. That's a
Yes.
pretty huge morality compass.
War's bad, but better than future genocide. I think
Yes.
is the calculus.
And I
here.
think he also has the power to do that. So he's thinking
Yes,
at that
yeah.
level, right? So as he becomes more skilled and respected, he gains a sense of purpose and a desire to protect this whole country and all the people that it populates, except for
Yes.
the Urkels, maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's gonna come around on that
Yeah.
because it's looking bad for him right now.
Yes.
We don't like to see it.
So distinct from that, his other moral guides are pretty big and cut and dry, black and white.
Yes.
That takes us to Roran, who also comes from the same humble beginnings as a farm boy.
Yeah.
But his life was changed differently. When his father was killed, his village is attacked, and his fiance is kidnapped.
Yes. So like personal affronts.
Yes, they're very directly linked to him.
Yes.
Right? Unlike Eragon, Roran is more grounded from the beginning, and he makes decisions based on what's right, not like for the world or like a battle between good and evil, but mostly and solely for the love of his people of Carvajal, but mostly his love of his fiance, Katrina.
Single-minded, that guy.
Yes.
But yes, that's a good point. It's not on this grand and epic scale. It's on
No.
a very realistic, like, how do I do right by the people around me?
Right. And even that's really secondary. We're seeing this at the end of this book. He's like, am I bad for what I've done to all the Carvajal people? And I don't know, Rowan, something you'll have to think about.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, like you said, the same humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
You can tie Roran's values obviously very clearly to Garrow and instilling
Yes.
that value of protection for those around you. But I think the same thing applies to Eragon. It just happens to be that because Eragon has this vaunted position in the world.
It's larger.
Yes, the people around him are everybody. He's responsible in a lot of ways. The way Roran's responsible for a village, Eragon feels responsible for the world.
For Alagasia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, totally. I totally agree with you. Unlike Eragon, though, Roran doesn't have also Saphira or
Yes.
Brahm or Ormus.
Yeah.
He uses his silver tongue, some trickery.
Yeah.
His tools are different. Violence
Yeah.
as a means kind of to achieve his goals. Where
Threats.
Eragon,
Dane, never forget.
Well, yeah, he uses violence, threats, and all of that gray stuff to
Yes.
throw around. Eragon just uses his title, right? They're just very
Yeah.
different in that way. This makes him a bit morally gray
Yes.
than I would say Eragon. And despite the fact that unlike Eragon or Murtagh, Rowan has no dragon or special abilities, he does remain loyal and dedicated to Katrina's hometown and doesn't let that stop his fight. He also fights along Eragon and the Varden to get what he wants and get his woman back.
Yes.
Roran's story arc centers around his unwavering commitment to protecting the ones he loves and sacrificing him and everyone else's safety. He's also willing to die for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Clearly, he's willing for everyone to die, including himself.
Yes.
Which is part of what makes him different, I think, than Eragon and Murtagh. We'll get to Murtagh in a second.
Yes.
And makes him a little bit more intense ethically.
Definitely.
would
Well,
say.
I think intensity has to kind of come along with charting a course that does not have a clear cut or a right answer, where Eragon
Yes.
has kind of the luxury in a couple ways of
No, totally.
of just having a black and white good and evil, like that guy sucks and let's oppose him.
And he doesn't have to really risk it all. There's really Eragon, even in this battle, knows that Galbatorix wants him alive.
Yeah.
The Varden wants him alive. Murtagh doesn't want to kill him. There's an element of he didn't have to put it all on the line.
Yeah.
You know what I
and
mean?
and he just has a greater center of power to draw from
Totally.
to solve this problem. So Roran, I think with the intensity comes from, yes, having to pick pick a path through something that is a lot grayer and having so much less at his disposal to do it with.
Yes, no, totally.
Yes.
Which brings us actually to Murtagh.
Yeah.
So he might be the most complex upbringing of the three. Like Eragon and Roran, Murtagh lost both of his parents, but his father was super abusive and his mother was absent, it sounds like.
Yes.
So after
She
being...
was busy giving birth to Eragon
people.
and very intensely eliciting a promise from Garrow and Marion to raise her baby boy when she disappeared.
Yes. So after being orphaned, Murtagh also has his uncle Wizard Galbatorix
God,
take care of him.
he has an uncle dad too?
Yes, yeah. So providing him a life of luxury, training and tutoring, and while like that doesn't solve or make better Murtagh's childhood or being orphaned, it was probably a lot more lush and comfortable than bean farming in the backwaters of the Empire.
Well, yeah. Remember when Murtagh famously was like, "The Empire's fine. Everyone I know is doing pretty well."
Well, that's what like honestly, yeah. Especially
hot take.
The hot take also adds that like Galbatorix left him alone.
Yes.
Until he was an adult.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
He wasn't hanging out with this evil guy, so it's probably a better upbringing.
Yeah.
So Murtagh's moral compass is more selfish of the three. I think it's just normal, right? And this is true even though he's forced into serving Galbatorix. At the end of this book, he's given a choice. It's a terrible choice, but ultimately, he puts his own well-being in life above the well-being of the world, and I think he knows that. He said that in the first book. Like, Galbatorix is evil. He's like a violent and horrible man. So even when the choice to preserve himself and his dragon Thorn from being evil, he chooses to serve Galbatorix, the genociding, mass-murdering slaver who works with literal boogeymen instead of giving themselves up. And Murtagh is guided not by his lofty ideals of good and evil, right or wrong, or because he loves other people, but he is basically operating purely on survival.
Yes,
and
the self-preservation instinct, his single-mindedness about self-preservation, I think really mirrors in a lot of ways Roran's single-mindedness about Katrina.
But it's even further because I think he's willing to do whatever it takes to survive, even if it means committing terrible acts. And I know that we've said this with Roran, but I think Roran has a limit on what he'll do with Carvajal. We are getting that reflection. With Murtagh, it seems to me that there's this, I'll burn the whole world, like I will burn everybody to the ground.
I don't know. I do kind of get the vibe from Roran that he thinks about what the limit is. Yeah. And he thinks that maybe he's crossed it, but he hasn't decided he has yet.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. I do think they're different in this way because we're even seeing this with like how he treats, Mandel and Norfravrel, and even for a larger extent, Bridget. We don't have those other characters with Murtagh, so it's hard to see that.
No, Murtagh is more solitary, which is why like his touchstone is his self-preservation versus Roran's touchstone, which is another person.
And I think I'll treat Eragon and Murtagh the same in this. I don't think Thorn or Saphira are other people to them. I think they're the same person. So Murtagh and Thorn are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
Well, I think it's similar to this kind of idea of threes. I think plays a big part here too.
Yes.
Where there are overlapping similarities between all these characters, and it is kind of until you prepared this stuff and started talking about it that I really started in a big way to draw a lot of comparisons and contrasts, obviously, between Roran and Murtagh. I mean, Eragon and Murtagh cleared.
That's clear as day.
You're always going to think about that. Murtagh and Eragon, of course, you're going to think about that too. They're brothers now, so you're going to go back through and like mentally catalog all the ways that they've been similar and different, right? Much like Eragon himself is doing. But I think Roran and Murtagh is a really interesting comparison to draw.
Because I think, I will say, it is framed as a means to an end for Roran, that he's saving Carvajal. He wants to ingratiate himself to the Varden. But like, I truly believe that like, if he really was selfish like Murtagh, he would have just left the village.
Well, not selfish, single-minded, I think is what they have in common.
Yes. That's the single-mindedness. So overall, I agree with you. Overall, the three characters demonstrate a range of more complexities and motivations, from the pure-hearted heroism of Eragon to the more gray and brutal morality of Roran, and the more definitely unfair, but like clearly selfishness of Murtagh. Each character's unique backstory and goals allow a reader to explore these different perspectives and compare them and like on what they would do and like in these moral choices in the face of challenging circumstances. So I found putting the steep dive together to be an interesting exercise. The analysis is clearly unfair to Murtagh, who's a little like choice. Like he has a little choice in this situation.
Yes.
But the same could be said for Roran. And also Aragon is by no means an unflawed person, as we saw and we just talked about. Like his hatred for the Urgles or his real like not cool advances
Yes.
on Arya is not great.
Yes.
It does.
Hot takes on racism and consent are a bit
little-
of a problem
little
for our
bit
guy.
rough. Yeah, they're a little rough. But it does seem, however, that both Roran and Aragon are willing to suffer and to die for other people and their actual ideals.
Yes.
Like Roran is willing to die for Katrina.
Yes.
Murtagh seems
And
not
to let other people do the same for Katrina.
Exactly. Murtagh seems not to want to suffer for anything or anyone, and ultimately it seems like he'll be forced to commit violence at the behest of an evil maniac, not for an ideal, but to live.
Yes.
And so unfair, totally. This is where the question of morality is very interesting. Does that make Murtagh evil? And I think the answer is actually probably. If you are above everyone else, like you're willing to sacrifice the world, burn the world for yourself, you're probably evil. Is it fair? Absolutely
No,
not.
no.
But there's definitely, I don't know. I think this could be debated. I think you can come out.
Yeah, well, I'm
And
wondering.
I love Murtagh, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where I think he's a good character because he's hard to pinpoint, and there are just questions on questions about how he ended up this way and like how much of it is his choice. And like in a way, I don't know if you could call it this, but in a way, if his highest ideal is his self-preservation, because he has been alone, he's been isolated his entire life. He's never had like the strength in numbers or connection of a community the way Aragon and Roran have. So it makes sense. I think it's justifiable that
it's understandable.
Yes, that that self-preservation is his biggest drive, and now he is melded soul, mind, body with this dragon, and so the self-preservation does extend in a lot of ways. Yes, I think it is ramping up Roran's like drive to survive, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, if in a way he's suffering for that ideal. Is the ideal morally good? Probably not.
No.
But is he willing to suffer, be controlled, commit acts he knows?
Right.
Like, is he going to suffer under like the yoke of self-hatred, basically, for the ideal of self-preservation?
What's funny is probably.
Yeah.
And like the thing is like that's why the no sacrificing ultimately,
he is sacrificing. What he's sacrificing are his morals, are his values.
Making him again
evil.
It's
I don't know. I guess if I'm looking alignment chart, I think I'm putting Murtagh maybe like lawful neutral.
Really, even after like his joy and like teasing Aragon and like killing Hrothgar and like you really think so? I just think there's a line that is crossed that's like he left Aragon alive, but also again he did just also find out himself that Aragon's his brother.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna chalk that up to generosity. I'm gonna chalk that up to like I'm not supposed to kill you, and also like maybe help me. Again, selfishness is what I'm putting it towards. I don't know.
Interesting. So where are you going? Where are you going alignment chart for Murtagh?
I'm gonna go. I think I'll go neutral evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he like would want to not be a bad guy. Just be a neutral, selfish guy.
Yeah, he's not fully chaotic.
Yeah, but he leans evil. I think even we saw in the first book, he doesn't want to join the Varden. He doesn't want to join the Empire.
Yeah, you don't think he's a man with a code?
No, he isn't. He's just a man trying to survive and just trying to like where that's different for me is like I think Roran, for instance, is at the moment with what we've seen, chaotic good. Like he is like he's on
you're right.
but he's on the precipice of evil. Like he like a few more sessions this way and it's like, all right, man.
We're gonna have to step you down to chaotic neutral and then you're quickly going.
Exactly. But so far I would say he made good on the promises. And then Aragon's easy. I mean, he's just a lawful good guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't break the rules really.
Yeah.
He just wants everyone to be happy.
Yeah.
So,
I think I'd agree with Aragon and Roran for sure. And maybe I'd I would never call Roran, which is weird, true neutral, although that's closer to what you're going for than where I started.
Yeah, well,
but like that feels like a clear no to me. I don't know why. Like morally, he feels like he doesn't want to be evil. I guess I'm thinking more his like motivations and his internal feelings versus like his actions and
You're
what
talking
those
about Murtagh?
represent.
Here's the thing. I think that's where morality is really interesting, is like no one who is actually evil thinks they're evil.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm like I'm like empathizing with Murtagh.
No, I totally do too. I
know?
love him. I actually think this makes him more interesting
Yes.
than the other two, to me, frankly. But I also think that this is what we're seeing with Roran, and it's why Roran, I think a lot of people like more than Aragon. He's a little more interesting in his nuance. You know, again, this goes back to something you brought up, which is the Superman problem.
Yeah.
Which, we actually want to get into talking about some other characters and stuff. So that brings us to, what are the haters saying this week?
Okay.
And guess what, haters? We're not talking to you this week. We're not ending this book on haters. Don't want it. Don't need it.
I think I'm seeing a pattern.
Yeah.
We don't like to do full book what the haters say.
No. Yeah. Oh,
They're
sad.
Debbie Downers, and we don't want to talk about them today.
No,
because
so-
we're happy. We finished a whole book.
We did another book,
We
man.
did it.
What I wanted to talk about is like, I want to like debrief the series a little bit.
Yeah.
And just go like something we couldn't do last time. Maybe just like, of the 2 books we've read,
Okay.
how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think it's hard because so much of the world building that happens in the first book, Aragon, feels so nostalgic to me. So there's
Yeah.
always that like touchstone and connection to meeting Brahm, to feeling like, oh my God, yes, I also was an insufferable teen for a while. And like, I feel so deeply what it's like to have to work your way and like slog your way out of that.
Yeah.
In that story in Aragon with Eldest, I think there's also so many of my other favorite settings, like Elis Mira and getting introduced to Oramus for the first time, and
Yeah.
like really going to a more structured version of magic school, which we all know.
What you need.
Yes,
You need a class schedule.
a necessity in my life. I like grades. I like graduation. I love stump time.
Oh my God.
Just kidding. I could never. I would die
Yeah.
under the burden
meditation?
of stump time. Yeah. Ick.
We all just learned a little bit about Jacqui.
So yeah, it's really hard because for me, those are so many of my favorite things to pick up on a reread.
Yeah.
I think I have been more surprised rereading Eldest, which has been fun.
Really?
I think for this reread, I'm maybe edging the experience of rereading Eldest a little over the experience of rereading Aragon.
Like it's more fun?
I think so, because I think I forgot more from this book, to be honest.
Yeah.
I forgot how quickly Roran's in it. I forgot how much Naswada's in it, and I love her.
I had forgotten she's in it at all, to be honest. In this
That
book?
she's like a POV.
Yeah.
Yes. So like I think some of those things, and I'm like, holy shit, I forgot how quickly we were turning
Yeah.
on this dime, how quickly, the threat of the soldiers came up at the end, and like
Yeah, that was surprise again.
and
yeah,
the battle part of it ramped up, how quickly we got the exploration of the dwarven culture and religion, and I love all of that. So
The
I think it was a
Urgles.
fun, yes, I think for me it was a really fun, like surprising, oh my God, I forgot this is happening already kind of a reread. What about you?
I think I had the same experience. I mean, because like think about how when you read these books, right? I read Aragon. I think Eldest was out,
Yeah.
but I think I read Aragon more.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah,
like
because I also had the same.
I think as the series progresses, I've read each book fewer and fewer times. I think maybe I've only read.
The next two.
Well, no, I've read the next two a couple of times, at least Brissinger. I think maybe I've only read the last book once.
I think I've only read Inheritance like 3 times, or 4 times. Not a lot.
No.
Yeah.
On your yearly read through?
Well, I
3 or
think
4?
I think what happened is Brissinger came out in like 2011. And if I did that for like 4 or 5 years,
That's true.
right? So anyway, I feel the same. I feel like Aragon is more familiar. Eldest had a lot more surprises. I like the fact that this book opens up so much more.
Yes.
I forget how like the world, even like we said, the Urgles at the end when I was commenting on what you were thinking about. I think even that is like, oh, there's like a whole world here. Everything has like an answer. The religion from the dwarfs. I felt the same way. I was like, wow, this is great. I will say I am kind of over Aragon being trained so much.
Yeah.
For me, that's starting to get a little bit. We're at 2 full books of training, and I'm like, I like Roran better, I think, in some ways because there isn't that.
Yeah.
He just is a character in the world.
He's just learning on the fly. Well, I think again, it's something I talked about, I think, at the end of Aragon, but I think the character Aragon is so much intended for us to be able to map onto him.
Of course.
Where Roran is, I think, intended more to be a foil for some of that and like provide a lot of contrast to the character of Aragon. And same thing with Murtagh, where, and we talked about this at the end of the last season, where between Aragon and Murtagh feels deeper and more fleshed out, more interesting in a lot of ways because you are supposed to understand his backstory immediately. You're supposed to understand his values and like he feels fleshed out in that way, where Aragon, you are supposed to learn alongside him. He is supposed to, I think in some ways, be a little bit milquetoast so that you can be like, well, I could be him. You know?
There's a way to do that though. Like in Hobbes' like Farsi trilogy with Fitz Chivalry, or whether it's Giselle Dan Luther in The Last Conversation of Kings. I think that's what that one's called. Is that the book series called? Joe Abercrombie? It doesn't matter.
The First Law. The
First Law trilogy. Thank you. So whether it's Giselle Dan Luther or even, I mean, there's other characters. I don't need to start listing a bunch of them, but let's just use those two. You know, they both kind of have learning arcs in their first books. It's a lot of what's their first books, and even Fitzchivalry into his second book. But I would say that like they start to devolve pretty far away from learning. We're still learning the world from them. They're still ignorant of a lot of what's going on.
Yes.
But it's not in a lesson format. They don't have a teacher and a guide to show them. It's more them in the world. And here it's like Aragon just really hasn't been on his own, and it hasn't served him very well. I mean, in the first book, he kills Durza barely because Arya helps him with Saphira. And in this book, he just gets his ass handed to him by Murtagh with like no chance at winning. Like, at least it didn't feel that way.
No. I think that's right. And I guess for me, being born in the Harry Potter, molded by it, like going back to school every year does not feel like a slog to me. And I will say too, while I love, I mean, in a lot of ways, very much more than this series, I love the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy. And those Farseer books, I'll say for Fitz Chivalry, yes, he's learning the world, but I don't, unless you relate very specifically to plot points in his story and like the things that happen to him, he's not as easy to map onto. I love him as a character, but I don't feel like I am him in the world as I do. I know, but like, but I think that's specific to you and your life experience, where it's not to me. And Aragon, obviously being very different from, I was never a bean farmer, Dane. Believe it or not, when you met me, I was not out hoeing the rutabagas. And I will thank you not to make the obvious joke about that turn of phrase. But I think, despite that, like, it is very easy to map onto Aragon and like look at your young life through the lens of what he's going through.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's what's going on. I would like a change. You know, same thing, like Giselle Dan Luther, the whole first book, I think, is him getting ready for his duel, right?
Yeah.
And like then that departs, and I can't map on that Giselle Dan Luther. He's I guess just like wild.
Yeah, I'm like, he just feels like an unlikable character.
Yeah, well, that's my point but still I liked when his story changed and we learned through his adventure rather than through his teachings. And I think, I don't know, at least for me, I'm hoping
I think for him, I would have preferred that somebody just sat him down and taught him some shit
and canceled him. Just like, you can't go further.
You're
I'm
a
so
monster.
Sorry. Well, this leads to some questions. What are some top moments of this book that you have?
This book, I think truly my favorite scene is Roran braining the twins with his hammer while Aragon and Murtagh watch. I think that's so illustrative of what exactly, like, so crystallizing for what is happening with all three of those characters in this book in so many ways.
It really is, actually. It's crystallizing what we just talked about.
Yes, 100%. So I love just that one scene is able to like show us everything we need to know about all three of those guys. I think, you know, the interactions between Niswada and Elva, while they like definitely rub me the wrong way, they give me the ick, they make me uncomfortable. I think that's exactly what is intended. So I think it's like well done, and it is good to go back and reread and just be like, oh, fuck, this is
creepy.
This is not great. But I think it shows us so much about Niswada. And I love, weirdly, I mean, it's all kind of at the end of this book. I love the scene with Nargarshvog where we get his backstory.
Yes.
I'm a sucker for just like a quick backstory moment. It always reminds me of like doing all the putting together the pieces of Voldemort's life in the whole 6th book of the Harry Potter series. So I love that we get a quick download of that for Nargarshvog. And then I'll say I really like some of the quiet moments between Aragorn and Oramus during their training. I think to watch Aragorn have somebody who just like cares about him and then does it kindly.
Yeah, he's in like a brutal taskmaster, really. He's understanding. He's trying to meet Aragorn where he's at.
Yeah, I think that's some of my favorite stuff in this book.
It's
also,
pretty nice.
I don't know, Dane, so many moments. Hrothgar marching in with his armor. I'm on a
like,
battle
holy
high.
She goes on like
Sorry.
2 hours. You just like, no, I like that you have so many. It's just funny. I was like, well, don't say the ones, don't say all of them.
That's fair. What about you?
No. I actually don't think it would have happened because first off, some of my favorite moments are not have anything to do with the main protagonist of the story.
Yeah.
I love Ulrich in the story. I love the vibe we get from the dwarfs from him, his relationship with Aragorn, how him and Hrothgar interact with Aragorn after the adoption. It really shows that it might have been a political move, but it's serious to them. Love that. I love obviously the scene where Aragorn jumps off of Saphira and cuts off it.
Think about it once a month.
Yeah, it's fucking dope.
Got to make the top moments list.
Yes, I love Murtagh in the story, just like the surprise of that. And I would say that, as much as I don't like Queen Islanzadi and the elves, I have to say there is a weird uncomfortableness that the Gady Blajrum has for me. It's
the sex magic, Dane. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, it trapped me. The sex magic is interesting to me, and just the way the monsters in the background are described, and the weird people, and the dancing, and the giddiness, and the manicness of it.
Yeah,
there's an otherworldliness of it that is very interesting. I wouldn't want to spend much time there, but it definitely is different than Trondheim in a very specific way. I love that.
That makes sense.
I think I don't know.
That frenetic energy.
Yeah,
feels very unique to that setting, that culture.
And as primal as the Dwarven world feels, it almost feels more primal and with the elves.
Oh, well, yeah, I think the elves and the whole connection to nature aspect of it definitely makes it feel like that.
Yeah.
They're part of the primordial soup and it comes out during their celebration.
Yeah. And I also love some characters that I think I would like some changes to them maybe if I were to be an editor or something.
Yeah.
But Vanner for me, I think is a refreshing take on one of the elves. He makes sense to me. His hatred for Aragorn makes sense. So anyway, those are some of my top moments.
Okay, what about, do you have any unanswered questions going into the next book?
So many. I want to know why Aragorn has prophetic dreams.
Yes.
I really, really do. And I actually really want to know. I want to know what the hell is going on with Murtagh.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
How are they so powerful?
Yes, I feel like most of the questions right now are revolving really heavily around the unexplained parts of this magic system. I think probably we both would agree on that.
Because, as I remember putting this book down, I might have been summer because I'm picturing going right back out to my pool.
Yeah.
And being what is... what the fuck is
going doing?
On? Yeah, and I could not figure it out.
Why is everybody wiling out?
Yeah, everyone is and I also I remember wanting answers of I will tell you this. I had the real question of is Aragorn ever going to be strong enough?
Yeah.
Was a question I had. I still have that question.
Yeah, I think that's a good unanswered question. I think I also would add to that, what is going to come of the dwarves without Hrothgar? I think we got so much, it's an interesting bookend because we got so little of it in the middle of this book, but the beginning was a lot of dwarven politics and political currents and a lot of talk of the clans.
Yeah.
And so just having that book ended by Hrothgar's death at the end and a quick almost one-liner from Ulrich about we're gonna pick a new king.
Yeah.
So we know it's a selection-based process, which seems like it could get a little hairy. So I just have a lot of questions about how that whole process works. I think we actually had that thought or question in one of the early episodes of this season. So I kind of am returning to that at the end too, to wonder like how all that works. I'm really hoping we get a lot of it on screen because they're fun and we like to spend time with them.
And I would say also how the war is going to go. I want to know, like, with Murtagh being involved with Galbatorix, isn't the war kind of over already? Like, you know what I mean? I had that question.
Yeah. What are we going to pull? What kind of rabbit can we pull out of the hat on the side of the Varden to like keep this going for 2 more books?
But you know what my biggest question is?
What?
When do we get revenge? I want revenge.
Yes, you do want revenge.
Yeah.
When are we going to get our hottie girlfriend back? Our fiance, sorry.
Hottest girl in town.
The hottest girl in town. Do you think she's still going to be the hottest girl in town?
Hell
That's my
yeah.
burningest question. I would say that's a good spot to end.
Yes.
Looking ahead, we are, dear listeners, going to, against all odds, read the 3rd book in this series.
We will probably take
Brissinger.
we'll probably take a few weeks off before we read Brissinger, but
Yes,
we will.
do have some ideas.
Yeah.
Per usual, for some probably lightly unhinged bonus content that we might put out until we get started on Brissinger. So make sure you are following us on all those socials. We spend so much time shouting out.
And here we go. The last outro of season 2.
We did it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. High five.
Yes.
Woo! Thank you, Kevin.
We made it.
Yeah.
We only referenced Dick Cheney a small handful
Just
of
a
times.
handful of times. I think we only made one George Bush joke. All right.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Nice. I love it. Okay. Well, here we go. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you. If you would like to rate and review us, especially on Apple Podcasts, support us on Patreon. We would appreciate both of those things. And check us out on social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Instagram and Twitter. If you have any questions for the next season,
Yes.
or if you just want to write to us about the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. And you can always email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
Yes, and truly, truly thank you for listening. If you have made it this far, thank you for sending in questions already. We have a lot of fun answering those. I think that's one of our favorite new additions as those questions are coming in. We really like to do that. And if you have any recommendations for some series we could get started on when we finish the Inheritance cycle, we would really appreciate that. We want to make, the show you want to listen to, and we want to read the books you want to read.
Yeah, for you.
So yeah, please email us with any recommendations you have or comment on our social media. We would appreciate it. And until the next season, what's a farewell in the Aragon universe? What's a theme appropriate?
We love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.